session of the series for family orientation. This session is focused on the experience and expectations outside the classroom. All of the sessions are designed to help families support their new student through the transition to St. Anselm College. My name is Carlia Burnell-Joyner. I am the Associate Dean of Students for Student Engagement and Success. I will be your moderator for this evening. This session will be recorded, and recordings will be available within 48 hours of this session on the college website under the new student orientation page. We encourage participants to use the Q&A feature to submit questions. We will get to as many unanswered questions as possible during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If you have individual questions, we encourage you to reach out via email to one of several emails that will be shared during the webinar. This evening, your panelists and my colleagues are Dr. Alicia Finn, Vice President of Student Affairs and Dean of Students, Andrew Litz, Associate Dean of Students for Community Standards, Rob Brown, Director of Campus Safety and Security. One last opening piece of information, as you likely know from previous sessions, the college is working hard to fine-tune the plan for having our students return to the Hilltop. There are a variety of subcommittees working on these details. These include the specific health and safety measures, adjustments to policies and protocols for life on campus, including in buildings, classrooms, and common spaces, and the process for students moving onto campus and the specific dates. I share this so that you are aware. We may not have all the specifics tonight, but we are working on these plans. And once established, we will share these details with students. Please encourage your student to check their St. Anselm College email, and that is the official and primary mode of communication the college will use with students. Without further ado, I now invite Dean Litz, Associate Dean of Students for Community Standards, to present.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to St. Anselm College. We are so happy to have you. My name is Andrew Litz. I am the Associate Dean of Students for Community Standards. I also serve the college as the Title IX Coordinator. I am best known as the poster child for St. Anselm College. I came to the college in 1974, and except for a short hiatus of about 6 years working with the Nashville Police Department, I returned to the college and I've been here for 34 plus years. How I got here is an interesting story, if you'll indulge me for a moment. My high school basketball coach, I had been recruited to play basketball in a number of schools, and in particular, a arch rival of St. Anselm in Vermont was recruiting me. And my high school coach had said, hey, on your way home, stop by St. Anselm College. My brother-in-law just got hired as the athletic director. So on the return trip, my mom and I came on a Saturday afternoon during the summer. And as you can imagine, the campus was pretty much empty. Well, we were fortunate. We ran into one of the college monks, Father Jude Gray. And Father took the time to take my mom and I on a tour of the campus and spent the afternoon with us. What a beautiful day, and what a gracious man Father Jude was. So at the end of the day, as we were driving off campus, my mom turned to me and said, your decision is made, you're going to St. Anselm College. And so the rest has been how my life story began, I guess. I've been fortunate. I met my wife at St. Anselm College. We have 4 beautiful children, none of which came to St. Anselm. And you probably are asking yourselves now, well, why is that? It's very simple, because I'm there. And they attended other schools that were good fits for them, and we're pleased about their education, as we are about the impending education your sons and daughters will embark on very shortly. For the past 20 years, I served the college also as the public address announcer for St. Anselm football. So on Saturday afternoons, you can hear me screaming through the microphone in an overly excited voice about either a first down or a touchdown. And you'll be able to say, oh, I know who that crazy man is. And I also serve the college, and I do public address for all home football game, for all basketball games as well. I'm passionate about athletics, but I'm more passionate about the students we serve. And so that's kind of where and how I get to St. Anselm. And I also want to pass along a piece of free advice. This piece is particularly for first-time parents sending a child off to college for the very first time. And if you happen to be a parent of a young man going off to college, mom or dad, somebody, please give him a lesson in how to do laundry. We at the college can tell within the first month or so who the freshman guys are because their clothes, having been whites and coloreds mixed, have a pink glow to all of their clothing. So please do yourself a favor, give them a lesson in how to separate laundry and effectively get it clean. So I'll now stop and pass you along to Dr. Alicia Finn, who pay no attention to the fact that she's wearing a pink outfit.
Thank you, Dean Litz. And to think I did this laundry all by myself. Good evening. It's a pleasure once again to speak with you. You're going to get tired of seeing me. I much, however, would prefer to meet you and see you in person, and I look forward to that opportunity in the near future. Nonetheless, no matter virtual or real, you are becoming part of the Anselmian community, and that's a good thing for us. A little bit about my background. I'm from New York. I'm a native New Yorker, Brooklyn to Long Island, and then outstate to a little college not dissimilar in feel and size as St. Anselm. I went on to go into Indiana and California and then came here to New Hampshire. That little Franciscan institution out in the western part of New York was St. Bonaventure University. Yes, the home for some of you who might remember way back when of Hal Lanier. Its record-setting size, 23 shoe size. I'm the one who gave my parents heart attacks because I didn't listen. I applied to one school and one school only. And when asked, what will you do if you don't get into St. Bonaventure? I said, I'll work for a year and try again. Well, how fortunate for me that I did get in. And my parents didn't have to go through the flop sweats, though I didn't listen well. What I found out, though, when I walked on that campus for me, was that it was a fit. It felt right. And that's exactly the way we hope your sons and daughters will feel as they enter St. Anselm. I've been here 15 years, as you've heard on other Zooms, in addition to being the Vice President of Student Affairs and Dean of Students. I'm advisor to the women's softball team. Hey, Dean Litz, how'd they do over the last few years, eh? Yeah, there was a run for a national championship amidst the trials and tribulations of last year. But I'm also the advisor to Student Government Association. So if your sons and daughters have been involved, know that we'll be tapping them for leadership. I'm a student affairs professional and educator for near and on 40 years now, I have to say. And I've had the experience of being a staff psychologist, a director of a counseling center, a dean of students, a vice president, and an acting president over, unfortunately, the closure of a college. But you know, in the end, it's my student affairs dean of students position that actually maximizes my contact with students and has ability to influence the institutional systems that support them. I have no other way to put it. I love working with students. I'm built for working with students. And I believe I have the best job on campus, as you've heard me say. We are a community of educators. And it is in this living and learning environment of St. Anselm College that we help students in several ways. They learn a range of life and career skills. They learn what it means to be living leaders. Leaders not by your title, but the way you live, the values you show, and the manner in which you interact with people. We also believe in an engagement in our college community and in the area community. in order to affect a larger society. And in some cases, our alums have gone on to affect the world. We want them to identify their one passion. What's that one burning thing inside that says, yes, this is what I'm going to give meaning to life through? In some ways, it's that powerful spirit that emerges, and they'll be that thing that gets enkindled for them, and it helps mold their future. So I believe the purposes in higher education are to enlighten our minds and engage our hearts. And that's a connection between the head and the heart. And you'll find that's the longest 13 inches in the universe. We develop students here with positive influences in their chosen fields, in their communities, nation and world. Boy, isn't it true that our world needs right now all the positive influence it can get. So I'll end this portion on this note. One of the things students will hear me say, running around campus at times, are you keeping up the pace? And PACE, standing for positive attitude changes everything. It's how we lean into the world and how we ask the question, how might I? COVID's a time for us to ask, how might I? And it's a time for us, like no other, to stay positive. So parents, many a time, will call out to you, keep up the good pace. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to the new guy who's been keeping his pace up with us. And that's Rob Brown, who's our Director of Safety and Security. Rob?
Thank you, Dr. Finn. Welcome, everybody. I am the new guy, if you will, here. I just started in January of this year, and the world ended up changing shortly thereafter. So I've been apologizing for everything since I've gotten here, because everybody says the new guy is responsible for everything. A little bit about me. I walked onto this campus as a aspiring freshman in the early 90s. And like Dr. Finn had said, this is the only college that I had applied to, was St. Anselm College, the only place I wanted to be. So I walked away after my 4 years, fully equipped to tackle the world. I married my wife at the St. Anselm Abbey, and we've raised 2 children in this community. And I went on to have a successful career as a police officer in this community. I spent 24 years with the Goffstown Police Department, and the last 5 years as its police chief. And I had no aspirations of any other job except for coming back to the hilltop. This was a home to me that I had always dreamed of coming back to. So I'm very thankful to be here. I hope that this change that's happened since I've been here can be changed for the better shortly. So thank you.
Okay, well, before we move on to the next slide, we also want to do a little shout out to the alumni who are coming to the campus or returning and having their son or daughter join us. People like Michael Walsh and some of the others. But as you would imagine, my phone has been kind of blowing up all of a sudden because people know my shtick and they want to know what team I root for. And so if you didn't catch on when I said I'm from New Jersey, yes, I am the evil empire. I root for the Yankees. Dean Finn, how about yourself?
I'm a New York Met gal all the way. And that's just to bring out the booze for everybody from Red Sox Nation.
Rob, you don't want to comment, do you?
I root for the winning team. That's the Red Sox.
Okay. Next slide, please. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Finn, can you start us off this evening by explaining the structure of your office and the support your division provides a student? Perhaps also describe the role within Student Affairs or the Dean of Students office so that people are clear about that and what the difference is toward the academic dean or the academic side of the house.
Sure. We're the counterpart to the academic affairs in the academic dean's office. And while fully supporting, collaborating with the academic side and the academic mission, our purpose really is to design, deliver, and support students in their out-of-classroom experiences. we provide those learning opportunities in a wide-ranging, modalities, from programming to mentoring of organizations and students, and we use those one-on-one teachable moments. We do this by promoting students' growth. We look at facilitating some constructive agreement and engagement in the community, and we look to encourage them to develop those life skills I mentioned before that will help them be successful beyond their time on the campus, in essence. The Dean of Students position really is, in the office rather, is committed to the support and the welfare, as well as the development of college's most valuable asset, and that's its students. And we do this within a Christian community of respect. As you've heard, our Student Affairs division is led by a vice president. And there are 4 associate and assistant deans who oversee this and support offices that are part of us. That's the campus ministry, campus safety and security. It's the Dana Center for Performing Arts, it's health services, it's the Intercultural Center, Res Life, student engagement and leadership, student conduct, the sophomore experience, the harbor, which we'll hear about later, and a whole host of initiatives. Some of those initiatives actually are around things like a collaborative for student leadership, the service learning, trips and opportunities, Anselmian 360, transitions, Relay for Life, and then a multitude of events and retreats and conferences. One of the critical vehicles that we use to support students, those students who might be in need for a variety of reasons, be it transitions to college, could be things like grief or anxiety, depression, sometimes some more significant issues that crop up, is that we use a principle here that's called, we actually borrowed it from the monastic community, and it's a principle of support called synpecte. What synpecte means is do such that the receiver doesn't know. And so we've founded this group called SupportNet. And it's a group of professionals, academic and student affairs, who come together. And in essence, we review students who might have needs. And we do this in a confidential setting. And actually, I'm counting on you to keep our secret. Because one of the things we don't want is we don't want to turn this community into a microscope. I don't want students living as if they're in fish bowls. But being a caring community, we are very aware of what's going on with our students. And we pay attention to those signs of difficulty, to those signs of rough spot. And so this group comes together to find those people who naturally bump into the student. And we're able to craft some support mechanisms and get them to resources they need if that's appropriate. So SupportNet, it's there for the students, but there may be times you want to give us a heads up, and we'll make sure that we take a look and pass that on and find those ways to provide that net of support for them as they continue in the community.
Next slide, please. Now, parents, over the course of this summer, it will be important that you begin to have conversations with your son or daughter about their impending college experience. We'd like to assist you with that conversation by sharing with you some of our experiences having worked with students. Alicia?
You see here an interesting piece. This is a phrase that's common for us around here, for it's one belongs as a portion of the first line for the rule of St. Benedict. And that is, listen carefully to the master's instructions and attend to them with the ear of your heart. We have used that quite a bit. Having worked with students all these years, listening from the heart, listening with the ear of the heart, it's important. Your sons and daughters here will have all kinds of things to get used to, and you see them listed right before you. I'm not going to go through each one. Aren't you lucky that I'm not? But in each case, your son or daughter is being called forth to be and assume the role of a young adult. You are looking as a parent to listen to what's going on. And the natural tendency sometimes when you hear about some of those bumps or transitions, some of those, they're not sure how to make that decision, might be to jump in, to react, and to pick up the phone, to make the call, to figure it out and fix it. Well, I said your son and daughter are now becoming young adults. Actually, they are legal adults. And so we believe they must truly begin to assume that role. I'm going to encourage you that the moment you feel your hand flying up to get that cell phone, stop, put it down, listen to what's going on with them, and ask them some guiding questions. Have you gone to see so-and-so? I can't encourage you enough to try as hard as you can to let your sons and daughters manage their own affairs. You can certainly call us if you need support or you're not sure where to guide them. But the best thing to do is that your son and daughter encourage them to come see us or to see a variety of spaces and places like their academic advisor, like any of the offices within student affairs and in their settings. They'll begin to meet people and we'll make sure they have the resources. It's best if you can do that. Best if you can counsel them to try to resolve these things on their own. And they'll find their way through the pathway and hopefully it'll have a positive outcome for them. But they'll learn what the pathway is and they'll learn the factors that are needed to make some good decisions and choices. We're here on the hilltop fond of saying at this point is that as we're the home of the hawks, it's time for them to spread their wings and learn to fly. They learn to fly. So I want you to keep in mind this. The journey for every student is not the same. And the ideal role for you as a parent at this juncture is to be the supportive guide, the listener, the encourager. Keep listening with the ear of your heart. Listen to what is said, especially listen to what is not said. This should spark some curiosity in you. Empower them. Ask them the question, what might you do? Who might you seek assistance from? Where might you find an answer? And then stay positive. Stay positive. Staying positive is part of that question of how might you? Pushing them towards leaning in to problem solving. And there's a thing about that. You want them to be good problem solvers. You really do. You want them to get this right and to know how to make decisions. And why? They're going to choose your nursing home someday. Let's get it right now. All right. Dean Litz, back to you.
Next slide, please. So, parents, regarding the way in which we communicate here at the college has some drawbacks to consider. An important aspect of collaborative messaging involves our legal obligations. That's something nobody wants to talk about these days. But are you familiar with the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act that's referred to as FERPA? FERPA was enacted in 1974, and it was designed to, one, protect the privacy of educational records from third parties, such as yourselves, and from those not designated as need to know. That's unfortunate because most parents, like myself, I always figure I need to know what my kids are doing. The second aspect of FERPA was to establish the rights of students to inspect and review those educational records. And thirdly, to provide guidelines to correct inaccurate or misleading data that was found in those educational records. Now, students need to give consent to disclosures for each context. Waivers are not transferable. So let me say it again, waivers are not transferable. You can, if you, through your discussions with your son or daughter, decide it would be in their best interest to have a waiver such that you can speak directly to an academic dean or the director of financial aid, the registrar, you will have to have your son or daughter's permission, and you will have to seek a waiver in each of those offices. If you get one from the academic dean, that's not transferable to the registrar or to financial aid. Each of the offices have their own waivers that they keep that would allow them the opportunity to speak to you about your son or daughter's educational record. Dean Finn, do you want to talk a little bit about how it works on our side of the house?
So very briefly, there are two exceptions to that, and that has to do with the alcohol and drug exception, which is that under FERPA, we're permitted that if there is a first offense, that we will send a letter home to you and you will be notified of that fact. We're permitted to do that. The second was emergency situations. And so in those emergency situations, so oftentimes those are medical, clearly, that we'll be in touch with you, and the reason for that is first we will guarantee their safety, and then we'll get a hold of you. If, for example, we have to call an ambulance, the issue is that if the wheels roll, we'll call. And so that's something that we want to get to you as quickly as possible. But the reality is first we need to make sure they're safe. So if there's any delay, it will be late to get you some information. Those are rare, so everybody calm down. Okay, bring your anxiety level down. Those are rare that we will have to do that. But those are the two situations where we will go to you directly. Okay. So this brings us to another point. And here's a little bit of this, when you see this, strategies to partner. This is where we want to collude with you a little bit. We need to partner up and get on the same page with a couple of things. And the reason we say that is that there are two areas that we want to address for you, in that if we can partner, that we can actually make sure that your sons and daughters stay on track and stay healthy and safe. So these are a couple of things we want to urge you to have some serious conversation with your sons and daughters around, and so that we can take a look at what this means. We're calling them elephants in the room because not all colleges and universities, though more do now, just plain out tell you that what's going on. And that's what we want to tell you now and ask you to help us by helping your son and daughter and by having those conversations at home. The first one, Dean Litz, are you ready to speak about the first piece, which is substance misuse?
I am, thank you. Next slide. And we're going to come back to this slide when I'm done. So regarding the first elephant, let's talk about alcohol and what's straight about this. Ladies and gentlemen, regardless of what your son or daughter tells you, the legal drinking age in the state of New Hampshire is 21. Not anything below that will allow them to consume alcoholic beverages. The second fact that you need to know is they don't come to college to learn to drink. Studies show that they come to college to hone those skills. So I ask that you have an open, honest, and frank discussion at home about what your expectations are when they come to school regarding alcohol and regarding controlled substance. In New Hampshire, we have not legalized the use of marijuana like it has been done in the state of Massachusetts, where many of our students come from. And that's something that we'll have a conversation with those students about when they come to school. But please understand that things are not the same in New Hampshire as they are for any of you who are from out of state. So it will be important that you have that conversation, because in order to maintain a liquor license that the college has, we have to have an enforceable alcohol policy. And we will do our best to enforce infractions of our policy when and where we see it. We do have a good community relationship with Goffstown Police and with the Goffstown District Court. We feel it is vitally important that the messaging be somewhat the same. so that what happens at the college is similar to what would happen in the local community, because they have the same expectations. We practice being good neighbors. So people would ask me, well, what happens if my son or daughter were to violate the policy, get caught with an open container, for example? The college will issue a fine of $150. The student will also be required to do an educational program called Choices, and it's a workshop that we run on Friday afternoon, so it doesn't interfere with classes. And they're told that that's the level one, and if they get caught again, the sanctioning will increase. And that also, that at that point, we probably will be having a conversation with mom or dad at home, because again, we have an expectation that this is collaborative messaging. So please have that conversation at home before your son or daughter comes to school, so that there aren't any real surprises. We would appreciate that immensely. Because the real fact here is St. Anselm is no different than any other college or university. We all struggle with the underage consumption of alcohol and all of the related issues that come with it. So again, I implore you, please have a conversation so that you will avoid seeing bills for non-payment of fines or failure to complete community service if that's what they're assigned to do. Thank you.
So if we go back to that last slide again, the next one we want to talk to you about actually revolves around see something and say something, and that is the prevention of sexual misconduct and sexual assault on campus. No matter how we call it, what we say, this is a hard topic. You never want to consider this happening to anyone, female or male, and never mind that it could happen to someone that you love. When it comes to harassment and assaults, our focus is really, and our main concern is prevention. So in August, during the part 2 of Anselmian Journeys, your sons and daughters will be educated about some of the warning signs, some of the realities, bystander interventions, so that we as good Anselmians can intervene so something doesn't happen. They'll learn about what the definition of consent is, as well as the resources that are here for support, as well as the local community, and how then do I let somebody know that something has gone on. Let me give you a context of why these efforts are so very important. Just in general, 1 out of 5 students are sexually assaulted between the ages of 18 and 24. 67% of those victims tell someone. That's a friend or a family member. That gives us hope. That means that when only 10% are reported in general for either crime purposes or to an institution, 2/3 of people will tell someone else. So for us, really focusing on those bystander interventions, those friends who hear that, and teaching people about where the resources are vital and important for us in order to prevent. So we need to take some heart about some of that, and that it's really important. The programs that your sons and daughters are going to participate in live and in online, they're going to provide that context of consent, as I mentioned before. And although we do a lot of teaching around this, I want to underscore that defining consent, simply defining it, does not mean that the college endorses or promotes any advanced sexual intimacies. We want the students to be clear about what consent truly is. Examples of things, okay? So silence isn't consent. Being under the influence of alcohol and drug means you can't give consent. A lack of a struggle doesn't imply consent. Only the spoken yes, heartfelt spoken yes, is in an affirmative response equals consent. So all students are going to receive some information about in varied formats about those confidential resources on campus, as well as offering some tips. Now, the good news also in this, students are reporting, and they're reporting on behalf of and to support friends, whether it's something occurred off campus or on, or to a friend at a different college or university, or that had occurred prior to their coming here. They are turning for help to our center called the Harbor. And in the Harbor, we have a trained individual who's just spectacular, with a lot of animation, that does a lot of our education, as well as provides the one-on-one support, as well as our counseling and health center, where we have specially trained folks. So there's really devoted to the prevention work and to the work of healing. So folks, please have these conversations at home about alcohol, its misuse, and it can lead to vulnerabilities and poor decisions, but also what is expected, hoped for, to safeguard self and others. Listen, ask them, beg them, urge them, underscore them, prod them, whatever word you want to fill in, to listen to the tips and to the information that's been given. I'm calling upon you to join with us to collude. Why? To create and continue maintaining that Christian community of respect for self, others, and place. Drew, I'm going to bounce it back to you.
Good. Parents, there is a strong connection between these two topics. If alcohol misuse were eliminated, we would prevent over 90% of all assaults. Parents, you can be strong motivators in empowering students to understand the importance of taking responsibility for their actions. And speaking of responsibility, responsible for campus safety is Rob Brown, Director of Campus Safety and Security. Can we go to slide 6, please?
Thank you, Dean Litz. Our safety and security officers are present on campus on a 24/7, 365 basis with multiple units covering our 400-acre campus. Although St. Anselm College has a Manchester mailing address, the campus actually occupies 3 separate jurisdictions with about 98% of the entire campus in the town of Goffstown. Several of our athletic fields and our largest parking area actually are in the town of Bedford, and there's only a really small section of campus near the Institute of Politics where it is the city of Manchester. I mention this just because of the geographical area of where your student is going to reside. And to say that as well is parking is an issue. We only have about 1,900 parking spaces on campus for 2,000 students and about 700 faculty and staff, and any visitors that may come for any sponsored event from the college or a sporting event. So if it's at all possible for you to convince your son or daughter to leave their vehicles at home, we'd encourage that, because parking is inevitably a situation on campus every day, every week, and every semester. There really isn't a need to have vehicular mobility on campus at all. It's a very walkable campus. In fact, it's beautiful. They should take the time to be able to recognize all of its splendor. Should they do need to have a vehicle on campus for a hardship or something along that line, as Dr. Finn mentioned earlier, your students are adults and they are accountable for the decisions that they make when it comes to their own parking choices. And I say this because oftentimes our office is flooded with phone calls from parents on behalf of their student. And we'd encourage your adult students to come and contact us individually so that we can maybe try to discuss an accommodation as the need arises, rather than parents getting only part of the story about a bigger problem that they may have encountered when parking on campus. So on or about August 1st, students will receive an email from our office indicating the process by which parking permits are issued. Again, we're going to encourage you to make sure that you don't have your son or daughter bring a car to campus, but should they have to, instructions for that will come about on that date. Also, during that email, there'll be information regarding our emergency notification for on-campus alerts. We use SAC alerts, and this is a text messaging service. It works in concert with our outdoor public address announcements in the case of an imminent safety event. The system helps us reach members of our community should there be a need that arises. It assists in our department to provide information of a threat how to proceed during this particular threat, and when the emergency is ended. It is further used for notifications for weather events, closings, delays, or some other type of alteration to the schedule for the campus. Each student will end up having an account, and they can have multiple users on the account. So a parent, as a parent, can certainly sign up and be able to receive those alerts or notifications should they come out. Regarding fire safety on campus, our Goffstown Fire Department is very active on campus, both for response and for prevention aspect. We have 62 buildings on campus, and inevitably we end up having a false alarm or two, so fire trucks are not a uncommon sight on campus. But in any drill or a real world event, they take the safety of our students here very seriously, and it's also important for our students to make sure that they don't not to dismiss a drill or a false alarm as something that may be of a significant event. So we want to make sure that they're taking it seriously. I'd kind of leave you with this, that I mentioned my previous employer, the town of Goffstown. About a high percentage of that particular law enforcement agency has alumni from this campus. So they take great pride in what happens on campus. They take great pride in the safety of the students here, and they do so for many, many years after. They think of this Hilltop experience as something that's going to carry on for them for a long period of time. And I think that that should be comforting to you as parents, knowing that they care about your students and our students here on the Hilltop. So with that, Drew, did I miss anything at all?
Nope, I think it's a great foundation. Nice job, Rob. Ladies and gentlemen, I know we're running a little over, so for our formal presentation, so I want to leave you with this. When all else fails, you can rely on the old saying, no news is good news. And with that, I always wanted to know as a parent, what's the end game? Can we go to the next slide, please? This is the end game. Commencement Saturday, May 18th, 2024. That's what's important. And we'll get your sons and daughters there. It's in good hands. It's in Dean Finn's hands. Next slide, please. Carlia, it's all yours.
Well, we have some questions that are beginning to come in. We have a quiet group. Actually, it's not even a question. It's a nice job, everyone. So if we didn't get to answer your questions this evening and you're like me, you like to process information and your questions come up a little later, we encourage you to reach out via email to any of the email addresses shared on the screens of our presenters, or you can contact the Dean of Students at anselm.edu or safety@anselm.edu. Oh, some questions are coming in. Let's see. Are there any self-defense classes?
So I can answer that one, Carlia. So the Goffstown Police has worked in concert with St. Anselm College before to do the RAD class, which is the Rape Aggression Defense. That is a very powerful course that is offered up. St. Anselm has been benefited from that from our local agency in Goffstown Police. So that is something that if we had requested, I am certain that could be offered.
Okay. Rob, here is another question for you. Are parking passes limited in number, and is there a lottery?
There is a limitation on the amount of passes we have, but there is not a lottery. So it would be a first come, first served basis, and there are certain designated parking areas on campus, and there are only a certain amount of permits per lot that are issued. That said, with the reminder, freshmen don't necessarily need cars on campus, so we kind of strongly encourage that.
Let's see. I don't know who would like to take this one. I think we are looking at mailboxes, but do children get their own mailboxes?
I can take it if you'd like. Students are given a mailbox number. And so actually we're revising some of our mail systems at this juncture. And so they will get notified that they have mail or a box or a package of some sort coming in. So just like your house, we're seeing Amazon coming, whipping at us left and right. So they'll be told and get a notice by email that there is mail left here for them.
Finn? Dean Litz, what will we do with students if they are moving in so early? Do we have any planned activities?
I understand that there are planned activities and we're moving forward. Right now, the college is very busy trying to define what the move-in process and period will be, because it's going to be based on testing and quarantining and things of that nature. But we won't be able to bring everybody in all at the same time, which leaves us with a certain period of downtime for those students. So we want to make sure that there are activities and educational opportunities for all students while they make it through their quarantine period, and then afterwards as they await the start of the academic year. For first year students in particular, orientation will take place as soon as the last group of first year students clears quarantine. So that's all out in front of them. I know the transition leaders are preparing to engage the transitions program. That's a pre-orientation piece. So yes, to answer the question, there'll be plenty to do for students as they await the academic year.
Dean Litz, I'm going to ask you this question as well. Folks are curious when move-in is, so they can get flights booked. The sooner, the better the price.
Okay, so that hasn't been officially determined yet, but it will be a period of about 10, 11 days before the start of the academic year. But not all students are going to come in on the same day. And that's because we have a limited number of spaces available for testing, and to reduce the density of move-in, right? Because we're trying to protect everybody. It's going to take place over a period of time. And I can't say that on the first day, any one of you are going to be assigned to that. But I would anticipate a little bit later in the process, perhaps beginning around August 12th, you might start thinking about it. Do you want to say anything, Dr. Finn?
I just thought I saw you give a big wink around that number there. Something in your eye? August 12th? Is that about what you think? Please know, folks, that these aren't firm, but we're just trying to give you an estimate, especially when you see dollar signs and flights. Okay, but you're in the neighborhood, and those announcements should be coming out very soon.
Rob, I'm going to have you answer this question. It has to do with parking. How many freshmen historically have a car? And for students who do have a car on campus, what is the cost and where do you apply for a parking pass?
So the instructions, as I mentioned, of the parking portal will come out to the students around August 1st. So they'll be directed to the St. Anselm College website, where it'll be directed to the parking permit portal. So all of that will be captured in that email. The parking permits are $150 for the year. We are working with our third-party vendor right now to try to see if we can get semester parking passes, but it's a little trickier than just saying we're only going to charge people half the price to give half the year. So understand that. And I would say in a normal year, without a COVID-related year, we would see maybe probably less than 300 or so freshman parking permits.
Great, thank you. Rob, I'm going to have you answer this one as well. Are there blue lights that signify an emergency phones located throughout campus? We saw these at many other colleges during our students' visits.
Yes, there are. They're scattered about our campus. That was also one of the reasons that I had mentioned how vast our campus is as far as the jurisdictions, but there are about under 10 call boxes. Each of them are equipped with the ability to make contact with emergency first responders, give the location of where they are. The light signifies that there is an alert there, as well as there is a camera that gets monitored at those locations. So they're scattered about the campus nicely.
Thank you, Rob. Dean Finn, I'll see if you want to take this one. First, what do we mean by quarantine, and what is the quarantine period? What will it consist of, and how long? And will they be able to leave their dorms?
Okay, the way we're utilizing quarantine, and we're not alone in doing this, is that after students are, they come in and they have their tests. Those tests should be back within 48 to 72 hours. Now we're utilizing both test options, which is both the nasal swab as well as testing for antibodies. And so again, 48 to 72 hours. We are going to ask them to remain in their room, and there will be, or at least in that hall, and there will be other things going on for them during that time. And we will feed them, by the way. We'll make sure of that. What will happen afterwards is that if they've certainly come back clear, then they'll be able to move about the campus. It's important to keep in mind that other students will be cycling in, and so they'll be within their quarantine time too. So there'll be a variety of some virtual and on the ground kinds of things that are going on. That's the moving quarantine. Later on, should a student show some symptoms and that we're concerned about that, we will remove them from that area into place them in a separate area while we're awaiting testing results to come back. If those testing results do come back positive, we have an area that, a larger area that we've set off for some isolation so that we're able to address their medical needs, check in on them, working obviously with medical personnel as needed, or they'd have the option if they tested positive to choose to go home, but not everybody can, and that may not be the wisest thing at that time. So we have two types of things going on there. Okay.
We are getting a lot of questions about the move-in process and what the procedures will be. Just to, again, to make you all aware, our subgroup, we have a subgroup specifically focused on move-in, and they are working really hard to get all the specifics addressed. Dean Litz, let me ask you this question. Would it be best to get a test from home? And parents want to know if they'll be assisting students with their move-in.
I want to say yes, but Dean Finn, do you want to comment a little bit about that part, that piece of it, the pre-test?
Yeah, there'll be something coming out. We're in the process right now. Literally, there are meetings tomorrow and the next day to finalize, to make sure that our consultants and everybody involved are comfortable with it. But we are looking to see, and again, we'll push out information to you about a narrow time frame before they move in, that if they've had both of these tests and they can show certification that they have passed those, that will be acceptable to moving in. So again, please, I call for your patience just a little bit longer, and we'll have all those details out to you.
We have another question in terms of what determines singles versus double needs, and if students are in doubles, will they be in a room by themselves during this quarantine period? Dr. Finn, would you like to take that question?
Okay, I wasn't sure who you were going to pass it off on. They could be tired of my voice. Come on. Okay. So we have singles and doubles, right? So most students will have doubles. The singles are really for medical or specific needs. that exist. We don't have that many singles. The doubles, they will have a roommate. We will consider that room like almost a family pod, like you do. We're going to ask students who are in those rooms together to really make a commitment to each other, that they will respond in a healthy manner and conduct themselves the way we're asking them to operate on campus. And that is with masks, with social distancing, with good personal hygiene of washing of hands frequently and cleaning their work and study spaces as posted and moving about the campus we've got signs and directions and all that they will follow these protocols. We're actually going to be calling it a college community covenant. But in the roommates in particular saying, looking at each other in the eye and saying, I'm going to take care of you, you take care of me by virtue of the fact that we're going to do this smart. So yes, they will remain together. If one of them winds up showing signs, they will be tested and they'll be removed and tested and then come back to see what, obviously, will return when things were cleared. I hope that answers all of those.
Yes. And one last question at the moment. Dean Litz, will freshmen have orientation at the start of the semester like usual years?
The answer is yes. As far as I'm aware, orientation will take place in some format. I'm not sure exactly what the format is at this point because they're still working pieces of it out. But it'll be a rolling orientation at first because you have to understand our capability is testing 200 students a day. The freshman class is certainly well over 400, so it's going to take us 3 days to get the freshman class screened, tested, and moved in and serve the quarantine. So as the last group is coming in, the first group is clearing, and so we want things for each of those groups to have to do such that when the last group clears the quarantine, we would have an on-the-ground go with orientation program. I hope that's the correct answer, but that's the way I understand it.
Last question, has the time frame of the semester been confirmed? Dr. Finn? Would you like to take that question?
Sure. The time frame certainly for the first semester has been. So classes will begin on August 19th, and then we'll run through on November 20th. So they'll be going home before Thanksgiving. That'll be all part and parcel of the detailed information that will be coming out to you. Then during the central portion of that time, there'll be an elongated kind of middle section there that they'll stay home probably till the end of January, and then we'll get them back. Again, the details of that will be forthcoming. Our goal clearly is to keep everybody safe and sound. And this is as we know it today. We want to make sure that we clear any resurgence that has been anticipated for the latter part of the fall. We also want to make sure that we are taking care of the kind of confluence of virus season. Now, it's all predicated on, do we get vaccines? And are they of the potency that is being hoped for by everybody? But right now, that's our schedule, not likely to change, certainly the first semester. And we'll keep you posted on that. The academic calendar will officially be offered out in a short period of time. Again, it's going to be part of like this big push of information you'll be getting.
On that note, we are going to wrap up this evening's session. I want to thank my colleagues, Dr. Finn and Dean Litz and Rob Brown. If we didn't get to answer your question this evening, and we know that there are many questions you all still have, we do encourage you to reach out via email to, again, the email addresses. And just as a reminder, it's deanofstudents@anselm.edu and safety@anselm.edu. As Dean Litz has said, there will be more information that we will be rolling out, and our team is working hard to get many of your your answers to your questions. As a reminder, tonight's session was recorded and recordings will be available within 48 hours of the session on the college website under New Student Orientation page. We look forward to seeing you at our next family session on June 24th on the topic of student engagement and the student perspective. I wish you all a good evening and look forward to seeing you again in the fall.